Hello everybody, Brad Kelly here. Just as a reminder, make sure you subscribe to this channel, turn on those notifications, like the video, comment. Today we're going to do a little bit of a Dallas Cowboys 7-round mock draft using PFF's mock draft simulator. Usually go a little bit fast with these as far as the speed of them go, but like to talk about the prospects, their potential needs on their roster, and also like I said, the strengths and weaknesses of each prospect. Get you an idea of each player and my views on each player that they end up selecting in this mock draft. So as I get going here, just as a reminder, guys, you can always uh, interact with me on Twitter at BradKelly17, really active on social media, DM. Um, Comment, whatever it may be. Like I said, do a lot of interaction there. So let's get into it. Like to do a little bit less random, but have teams care for positional value in these mock drafts. I'm not going to trade down or trade up in any of these picks. Try to give you guys an idea of exactly who the prospects could be available at each pick that the Cowboys are scheduled to make. Obviously, they are likely to make a trade at some point, but it's so hard to predict exactly when and where that it's probably a little bit easier to just sit back and make selections as they come. So let's see who was taken in the top nine here. We have four quarterbacks, right? Trey Lance was pick number nine, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith. So the top three receivers and the top four quarterbacks. Micah Parsons, a linebacker from Penn State, and Penny Sewell, the tackle from Oregon. And this is the top of the board. Kyle Pitts, Kwity Paye, Rashawn Slater, Caleb Farley, a couple other good prospects, Darisaw, Surtain, Christian Barmore. Now, when it comes to the Cowboys, I think their major needs are going to be on the interior defensive line and in the secondary, and even PFF has those as their needs here. Um, however, it is tough to pass on a player like Kyle Pitts pretty much as the best tight end prospect to enter the NFL in a number of years. Definitely the best pass catching tight end prospect to enter the NFL in quite some time. They also could Dallas could also use some help on the pass rush, getting a guy like Kwity Paye. However, I'm going to take Caleb Farley, the corner from Virginia Tech. I think he has the best traits at the position in the draft class. And with Chidobe Awuzie entering free agency as well as Jordan Lewis, there's really a question mark across from Trevon Diggs. I think the Cowboys are going to need to either bring back or sign or draft multiple corners. Farley is a pure outside threat. Big, strong athlete, relatively new to the position, but I think his traits are excellent. I would put him above Patrick Surtain because of his ceiling. I think Surtain has a little bit better technique as of today, but Farley sat out last season, so we don't even know exactly where his development may be. Based on his 2019 tape, I really like him and his fit for the Cowboys, especially at pick number 10. Now, pick 44, seeing some of the players available, Travis Etienne, Pat Fryermuth, a few good wide receiver prospects, good defensive back prospects as well. Davion Nixon is a interior defensive lineman who I think has a lot of potential as a one gap penetrator, really athletic, can able to jump one gap over, like I said, penetrate, play in the opposing backfield out of Iowa. He actually got some Heisman votes this past year, believe it or not. I'm going to go with Ifeatu Melifonwu from Syracuse. I think Melifonwu he's a corner prospect, but there are some safety traits there, so he could be a guy who plays even in the slot. Like I said, I think Dallas needs multiple defensive backs, and getting a versatile player like that in the building in the second round, I think could be a big win for them. He could play on the outside, he could play on the side, he could do some safety reps for you, and be that hybrid, maybe fifth defensive back with a lot of upside that the Cowboys are going to need. With Xavier Woods entering free agency as well at safety, you don't really know exactly who the stars are going to be back there anyway. Maybe Melifonwu can fit in there. Now, pick number 75 in the third round. I think the interior defensive line has to get hit on this pick, and there are multiple interior defensive linemen near the top of PFF's board right here. We're seeing one, two, three, four interior defensive linemen as in the top one, two, six players available at this stage. So it's definitely possible that Dallas is able to wait on the interior defensive line. They have drafted Tristan Hill. They had some flashes from Neville Gallimore last year. That this is might be the sweet spot for them to take an interior defensive lineman at this pick in the third round. So I'm going to go with Levi. I don't want to butcher the last name. I've heard it a million times on tape, but it's just a tough last name to say. I don't really feel like getting it wrong. From Washington, I think that, like I said, adding him to Hill and Gallimore, I think there is a little bit of ability to play a two gap style there. Um, and being able to do that with the Hill was more of just a disruptor, a little bull in the China shoppy, gives them a third interior defensive lineman, young player for all of them to develop, and you can kind of piece together two guys, in my opinion, between the three of them on a consistent basis. So now we're getting into a comp pick. So this is a projected. They don't know exactly which number of the draft that this is going to be. But the third round compensatory selection, once again, we'll see exactly who is available. I think I know exactly who I'm going to take. You probably saw the name. Dylan Moses is an interesting one, and so is Deontay Brown and Trey Smith. I think at this point, it's tough to pass on the talent of Brevin Jordan. Getting near pick 100, Brevin Jordan is a starting caliber tight end who is an excellent pass catcher, can play in the H-back role, can play in those nasty splits, can even play outside. Dallas has awesome weapons. However, it's assumed that Michael Gallup is going to move on from the Cowboys at some point because they paid Amari Cooper $100 million and they just used a first round pick on CeeDee Lamb. And and it might be wise to invest in other pass catching weapons before he moves on and be able to develop those guys before he moves on. Now they have good tight ends. However, Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz. And I think both of them are good pass catchers. However, getting another guy in there who has more athletic upside than both of them, and who I think can play in isolation on the backside of a formation similar to Michael Gallup, could be really, really interesting for the Cowboys offense. So I'm going to go with Brevin Jordan from Miami. I think Demetri Felton, those two interior offensive linemen, could have been good selections there as well. Hopefully, one of those interior guys are still available. So Quinn Miners from Wisconsin Whitewater is still there. So is Deontay Brown and Trey Smith. Now, when it comes to the Cowboys, um, Tyler Biadasz is probably the projected starting center going into next season as far as who is returning to the roster currently. Maybe they're able to re-sign in free agency. But haven't been that impressed with Connor Williams at left guard. So it's also possible that they want to take a player who might be able to play center and guard, and put competition in for Biadasz, um, and Connor Williams. I think that guy's going to be Quinn Miners from Division III Wisconsin Whitewater, one of the standouts at the Senior Bowl. Played center in Mobile, but played guard in college. So he's going to be the selection here. Fortify the interior offensive line with that pick. Now, this is also getting to the point late in the draft that a insurance selection for Tyron Smith is probably not going to be available. Actually, maybe Spencer Brown's right there. However, the reason I bring that up is because Tyron Smith, he only played 2 games last season, and even in I think the 3 or 4 years before that, he never played in more than 13 games. I think it was like 13 games exactly for like 3 years in a row, and then last year when he played in two. So he's a guy who's dealt with injuries. He's going to be 31. I think he has like 160 starts to this point in his career. So it's definitely someone that you might want to look at as you need an insurance policy for him. That's why I kind of brought that up. They could be in the market for a tackle at some point. And Spencer Brown, I wouldn't want to go back to back offensive linemen um, for the Cowboys because of the other needs on the roster. But just want to bring that up that that could be a potential need for the Cowboys and a potential a selection at some point during the draft. I think that the pick here is going to be James Wiggins. Just going to check, see if there's any linebackers that could potentially help before I pick Wiggins. Baron Browning is one. I think it's going to be Baron. I didn't even realize he was at the top there. This selection is going to be Baron Browning from Ohio State, a guy I think that can play stand up and on the edge, can kind of help with the pass rush that's been disappointing, but also help it with the run support that's been atrocious last year for the Cowboys. I think they were the worst rushing defense in the league. Browning has, I think he has excellent tape. And like I said, he's kind of that hybrid who can do a little bit of both. If you can get that outside the top, I think he's a top 100 player in the class. And if you get that outside the top 100, it's excellent value and helps, mask the lack of depth at linebacker and the lack of pass rush outside of Demarcus Lawrence. So getting into pick 179, it's also a projected comp pick. I think, as I mentioned, there are multiple needs in the defensive backfield, and I'm going to take Caden Stearns from Texas. Also, grew up and was born in Texas, but played at the University in Austin. Uh, at one point in time, was a projected first round pick after his freshman season. Kind of fell off, but I think that that potential is somewhere within him. I really like his projection to a too high defense. Um, and like I said, if you could kind of recreate that magic he had next to Brandon Jones at Texas, you could be getting something. I think he's been cast as a free safety, but you might want to move him around, play him in the slot and in those two high roles in the NFL. And being able to pair him with another versatile defensive back in Melifonwu and a starting outside corner in Caleb Farley, I think could really, really solve a lot in the Cowboys' defensive backfield. I think at this point in time, late in the draft, you're either looking for a wide receiver with upside, maybe a potential running back that could help on pass catching downs, help alleviate Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Going to wait on those because I see multiple running backs available. Maybe a high upside offensive tackle. So let's check out the offensive tackles. Larry Jackson has a great physical profile, but I don't think he can move as well in his lower body. Um, Tommy Doyle is an interesting one. His play really slipped this year, but going into the season, he was a projected mid-rounder. I don't know as much about Carson Green or Josh Bell. I'm going to go with Alaric Jackson. I think the physical profile is there. He has experience, I believe, on both sides of the ball, right and left, I should say, both sides of the formation, as a potential backup to Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith with developmental traits. And I'm now going to try to take a wide receiver or running back as a depth and potential upside pick. Brian Robinson, I think, has a really good projection to the NFL. His contact balance meshed really well with Najee Harris's, Jamar Jefferson. There's a lot of good running backs, I think, at this point in time. Chris Evans and Raheem Boyd. I think all these guys have at least the upside of a starter in the NFL. You know how it is with running backs. A lot of day three guys end up as starters anyway. Undrafted free agents, James Robinson last year was undrafted, started all 16 games, was really good. I think all four of these guys kind of have that within them. Depending on situation, depending on opportunity, they could turn into starters. I think I'm going to take Jamar Jefferson as a fit alongside of or behind Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. At this point in time, we're just talking about depth pieces anyway, with a little bit of potential upside. I like Jamar Jefferson's upside. And the same thing's going to be said for whoever is left at wide receiver. It's going to be Josh Amon Bebe. Freak of nature receiver, 47-inch vertical coming out of high school, 6'2", 215 or so. Flashed at the Hula Bowl, I believe. During practices, had good reports there, and during the game, I did not see any of the practices, but just an upside pick who could develop on the practice squad and into something, as a more permanent down the line, once you get the guy in the building. All right, so here are the draft results right here. Caleb Farley with the number 10 overall pick in the first round. But also notice back-to-back corner slash safety potential here, and then adding Caden Stearns. I think those three could give the Cowboys a lot of security and a lot of young talent in the secondary moving forward, which is something that I think they're missing. Like I said, with Awuzie, Xavier Woods, and Jordan Lewis all entering free agency, put these guys with Trevon Diggs and hope that they grow together. On top of that, you get Brevin Jordan as a potential offensive weapon. You're able to address the interior offensive line depth with Quinn Miners. You're able to help the pass rush and the linebacking core with Baron Browning outside of the top 100, which I think is great value for him as a player and as a prospect. Adding to the interior defensive line to pair with Tristan Hill and Neville Gallimore, increase the upside and the ceiling of those three with three young, talented interior defensive linemen and the guys that the Cowboys have really invested in. And then some depth pieces and upside guys in the 6th and the 7th round in Alaric Jackson, Jamar Jefferson, and Josh Imatorbhebhe. So that's the Cowboys mock draft. Let me know what you think. In the comments, let me know who you would have selected at each of those picks. Let me know what you would grade this mock draft. PFF gives it a B minus. I would say it's more like a B plus, which I think would be a win for the Cowboys, all things considered, the way that they have missed on some higher picks in recent years, not CeeDee Lamb, but in previous seasons. And this draft I think is balanced enough to infuse the roster with necessary young talent and a lot of bodies. So like I said, let me know what you think, and thank you.